Remember, Absalom has come to Jerusalem, and David flees. And in 2 Samuel chapter 16, we read about the men that came to David as he was fleeing. Among them was the old man Hushai. Now, we don't know that Hushai was old, but David said when Hushai showed up, he said, Hushai, don't be coming with us. You'll be a burden to me. And that kind of makes us think Hushai may have been elderly, because elderly people, you're just not going to move them through the wilderness on the rough stuff David is going to do very quickly. He said, I'll have to be spending my time looking after you. You need to go back to Jerusalem and see if you can get in on the council meetings of what they're talking about. And you can let us know. You see, Zadok and Abiathar, the priests, they tried to bring the Ark of the Covenant out with David. David said, take the Ark of the Covenant back. I'm going to come back. If the Lord's will, I'll be back in Jerusalem. And you two, listen, when Hushai finds out what's going on, he can tell you. And then you can send your sons, and they can tell me. And I'll know what's going on in the war room there in Jerusalem with Absalom and his elders and his advisors, and I'll know what he's going to do. And so they went back. And we're going to see how well this works in this chapter. And it almost doesn't work because of a little boy that overheard something and went and told Absalom what he heard. Can't blame the little boy, but it almost foiled the plan, the spy network that was set up. And Hushai goes in, and there's Ahithophel. Now, we read at the end of chapter 16 that when Ahithophel spoke, it was as an oracle from God. I mean, they thought so much of Ahithophel. Not that he gave righteous advice, but it was wise advice. And that was the reputation he had. Ahithophel told Absalom, I tell you what you need to do. Put your tent right up on top of David's house. Go into his concubines in the sight of all Israel. And they'll see you mean business. There'll be no reconciliation between Ahithophel and your father David, and they'll come to your aid. And that's what Absalom did. Well, now, how are we going to get David? And so we come to 2 Samuel chapter 17, and Ahithophel knows how to do it. And he's going to tell Absalom what to do to get rid of David. Here it is. Here's the memory verse. I always forget memory. Here's a memory verse. 2 Samuel 17:2. And I will come upon him while he's weary and weak-handed, and I will make him afraid, and all the people that are with him shall flee, and I will smite the king only. Now let's see how this works. Moreover, Ahithophel said unto Absalom, let me now choose out 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue after David this night. And I will come upon him while he is weary and weak-handed, and I'll make him afraid. And all the people that are with him shall flee, and I will smite the king only. And I'll bring back all the people unto thee. And the man whom thou seekest is as if all returned. So all the people shall be in peace. And the saying pleased Absalom well, and all the elders of Israel. Interesting how strong that conspiracy was. That there were representatives of all the tribes of Israel, the elders of Israel, there in league with Absalom against his father. And they thought, boy, Ahithophel, he knows how to handle this. Ahithophel says, I'll go myself and do this. I want you to remember who Ahithophel was. Remember? Bathsheba's grandfather. You know what David had done with Bathsheba? You think this might be his way of getting back? Ahithophel has some real personal involvement in this, as we shall see. 2 Samuel 17. Then Absalom said, call now Hushai, the Archite, also. And let us likewise hear what he said. And when Hushai was come to Absalom, Absalom spake unto him, saying, Ahithophel has spoke after this manner. Shall we do after his saying? If not, speak thou. Hushai said unto Absalom, the counsel that Ahithophel hath given is not good at this time. Now watch how he convinces Absalom not to follow Ahithophel's advice. Number one, Hushai said, Thou knowest thy father and his men, that they be mighty men, and they be chaffed in their minds. And if they're mad, Absalom, they're ready for a fight. Like a bear robbed of her whelps in the field. You can imagine a big old bear and how big old bear take out after you. He said, that's how those men are. They're just lying in wait for you, Absalom. And thy father's a man of war. He'll not lodge with the people. He knows better than this. Your father knows what he's doing. Behold, he is now hid in some pit or in some other place, and it'll come to pass when some of them be overthrown at the first, that whosoever heareth it will say there's slaughter among the people that follow Absalom. And he also that is valiant, whose heart is as the heart of a lion. I mean, these are the very bravest men that Absalom has. What's going to happen to them? Well, their heart will melt when they hear this. All Israel knoweth thy father's a mighty man, and they which be with him are valiant men. Therefore I counsel that all Israel be generally gathered unto thee from Dan even to Beersheba. Now that's the northern city and the southern city. All across. Gather them all together as the sand that is by the sea for the multitude, and that thou go into battle in thy own person. Absalom, you need to lead all these people. Don't send it all, Ahithophel off here. Absalom, you go and lead all this great mass of people, and we shall come upon him in some place where he shall be found, and we'll light upon them as the dew falleth on the ground. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, they're going to be everywhere. The dew falls on the ground everywhere. We'll just be everywhere here. And of him and all the men that are with thee, there shall not be left so much as one. Moreover, if he be gotten in a city, then shall all Israel bring ropes to that city, and we'll draw it into the river, until there be not one small stone found therein. Two plans here. So Absalom and all the men of Israel said, the counsel of Hushai the Archite is better than the counsel of Ahithophel. And here's why they did it. The Lord had appointed to defeat the good counsel of Ahithophel, to the intent that the Lord might bring evil upon Absalom. Then said Hushai unto Zadok and Abiathar the priest, Thus and thus did Ahithophel counsel Absalom and the elders of Israel, and thus have I counseled. So they institute this spy ring here, where they're going to get the message out to David, and it almost doesn't work. You see, they kept their sons outside of the city. They didn't want their sons coming in and out of the city. They thought they might give it away. So they got another person involved to go tell their sons what to tell David. Now therefore sing quickly and tell David, saying, Lodge not this night in the plains of the wilderness, but speedily pass over, lest the king be swallowed up and all the people that are with him. Now Jonathan and Ahimaaz stayed by Enrogel, for they might not be seen to come into the city. And a wench went and told them, and they went and told David the king. A winch. You know what a winch is? Laurie said, yeah, you know what a winch is. You put it on front of your Jeep, pull it up out of the mud hole, or something like that. That's what we pulled that. We had one of those old freezers about as big as this bench out here, and we pulled it upstairs once with a winch, to get it in a house. It was so heavy. You know what? That's not what David did. That's not what this is. I looked it up, and I checked the Hebrew too. This is a lowly slave woman. That's what's meant by the wench. Now, the name has meant different things in the English language, but at the time the King James Version was translated, a wench was a lowly slave woman. So they took this very unsuspecting woman. They told her. She was part of this. She was going to go tell Jonathan and Ahimaaz, and they're going to go tell David. But it almost didn't work. Look what happened in verse 18. Nevertheless, a lad saw them, and he told Absalom. But they both went away with him quickly and came to a man's house in Bahurim, which had a well in his court, whither they went down. And a woman took and spread a covering over the well's mouth and spread ground corn thereon, and the thing was not known. Those guys went down there. They got over the Mount of Olives, that little village just on the other side. That's where Shimei started cursing David, remember? And they found out they was being chased. And this woman said, hide in the well. And they went down in the well, and she spread a cover over it and took the grain, tossed it out. Looked like she'd been working over there, maybe thrashing the grain. They didn't even know the well was there, much less that the men were hiding in it. So they're hiding down in that well when these men show up to look for them. When Absalom's servants came to the woman to the house, they said, where is Ahimaaz and Jonathan? And the woman said unto them, they be gone over the brook of water. And when they sought them, they could not find them, and they returned to Jerusalem. And it came to pass, after they were departed, that they came up out of the well, and went and told David, and said unto David, arise and pass quickly over the water, for thus hath Ahithophel counseled against you. That water is probably the Jordan River. Get on across the river, because Absalom, he might come after you this night. Then David arose, and all the people that were with him, and they passed over Jordan. By the morning light there lacked not one of them that was not gone over Jordan. And when Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed, he saddled his ass and arose and gat him home to his house, to his city, and put his household in order, and hanged himself, and died, and was buried in the sepulchre of his father. Ahithophel knew this is going to fail. And now he doesn't want to be part of the failure. He hung himself. Well, 24. Then David came to Mahanaim. You remember Mahanaim? That is where Ishbosheth tried to rule over Israel after Saul was dead. Remember Ishbosheth, Saul's son? That was in Mahanaim, where he tried to rule on the far side of Jordan. Well, now David's come to this city. And Absalom passed over Jordan, and he and all the men of Israel with him. Absalom's coming after him. And Absalom made Amasa captain of the host instead of Joab. See, this is all a big family. Here's a family thing going on here. Amasa was a man's son whose name was Ithra, an Israelite, that went into Abigail, the daughter of Nahash, sister to Zeruiah, Joab's mother. Well, that sister, they were somehow kin. But these are all a bunch of cousins and in-laws and all that are involved in this conspiracy, aren't they? So Israel and Absalom pitched in the land of Gilead. It came to pass when David was come to Mahanaim that Shobi, the son of Nahash, of Reba, of the children of Ammon, and Machir, the son of Ammiel of Lo-debar. Remember, that's where Mephibosheth had hidden out from David at Lo-debar. Well, the fellow that had hid Machir, that fellow that hid Mephibosheth, now he's coming to support David. And Barzillai, the Gileadite of Regalium. Now look what they brought. I just love this list of supply. This is the relief work going on, I guess, here. Here they come with all these supplies, and it's just interesting to see what all they brought to Mahanaim and what this must have meant to David to see all these people bringing all this stuff to his aid. Beds and basins and earthen vessels and wheat and barley and corn and parched corn and beans and lentils and parched pulse and honey and butter and sheep and cheese of kine for David and for the people that were with him to eat. For they said, the people is hungry and weary and thirsty in the wilderness. Well, that's where we'll come to a close. Stay tuned. We'll come to chapter 18 and see what happens to this conspiracy. I think we've got one more chapter of this conspiracy of Absalom against David. It's taken up a lot of time here in the middle of 2 Samuel, isn't it? But David is well provided for in Mahanaim. Absalom's on his way after him, and there's going to be a battle to settle all of this. Well, it's good to study these things. I don't know that we would have studied this if it wasn't for the Bible Bowl, to just take a chapter and review the history and learn these stories. And I'm so glad our children get to hear these stories and think about those men hiding in the well, getting covered up by that blanket, and then after they're going to come up out of the well and run and tell David, that's kind of exciting to me to think about that. And let me extend an invitation. We study the Bible like this because we love God. God's Word is so interesting and it's so thrilling to come to the knowledge of it, but that's not the only reason we do it. We gather like this, not just because what we can get out of it, but because of what we can give. And this is our worship, to pay this much attention to God and His Word. Now, these stories will give you the background for some of the Psalms, and so when you read the Psalms, you can reflect back on these things. But really, we're here to honor God in His Word. You honor God by hearing, believing, and obeying the gospel, and living according to the teachings of Jesus Christ. And if you haven't done that, you can do it this evening as we stand and sing this song.